Guess the little monkey's too stupid to know her daddy's gone, Sergeant Rick Coyle sneered, grinding his boot into the dirt beside Marcus Freeman's lifeless body. The Mississippi sun burned down like judgment, glinting off badges that once stood for protection but now only reflected cruelty. 9-year-old Ayanna stood frozen, her small hands trembling as the men who had murdered her father laughed and turned away. They thought it was over. Just another report to rewrite, another lie to bury. But when she lifted his pistol and screamed, "Why did you kill my daddy?" the world shifted. Minutes later, black SUVs rolled into Hollow Creek. 13 of her father's Navy SEAL brothers surrounded the killers, armed not just with weapons, but with truth. Morning sun cut through the mist over Hollow Creek, Mississippi. Light filtered through the old oak trees lining Main Street, casting dappled shadows across Marcus Freeman's blue pickup as it rumbled down the road. The engine purred smoothly, a sign of the skilled mechanic who took care of everything he owned. In the passenger seat sat 9-year-old Ayanna, clutching her backpack tightly against her chest. Her dark eyes shone with admiration as she watched her father's strong hands grip the steering wheel. Their morning drives to school were special, a little world that belonged only to them. "Daddy," Ayanna said, fiddling with her backpack zipper, "we got a new project at school yesterday. It's about heroes." Marcus glanced over with a soft smile. "That right? Who'd you pick? Martin Luther King? Rosa Parks?" Ayanna shook her head, her braids swinging. "No, Daddy, I picked you." Marcus's hands tightened slightly on the wheel. Emotion flickered in his eyes. "Me, baby girl. I'm just a mechanic." "You're not just anything," Ayanna said firmly. "You fought for our country. You help everybody in town, even mean old Mr. Wilson when his car breaks down. And you always stand up for what's right." She pulled a slightly crumpled paper from her backpack. "See, I already started writing it." Marcus blinked hard, clearly moved. "Well, let's hear some of it." Ayanna sat up straight and began proudly. "My hero is my daddy, Marcus Freeman. He served in the Navy, and now he fixes cars. But that's not why he's my hero. He's my hero because..." A sudden flash of red and blue lights in the rearview mirror cut her off. Marcus's smile faded instantly. Joy drained from his face, replaced by quiet tension. He let out a long breath and eased the truck to the side of the road. "Put that away, baby," he said softly. "Remember what we talked about?" Ayanna nodded, her little face going serious. "Hands where they can see them. No sudden moves. Yes, sir, or no, sir." "That's right." His voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. 2 officers approached the truck. Through the side mirror, Ayanna saw Sergeant Rick Coyle swaggering toward them, hand already resting on his gun. Behind him, a younger Officer Dunn looked nervous. "License and registration," Coyle said, leaning into Marcus's window. His breath smelled like coffee and tobacco. "Got a broken taillight?" "No, sir, I don't," Marcus replied evenly. "Checked all my lights this morning. I'd like to record this interaction, if you don't mind." Coyle's face hardened. "Think you know better than me, boy?" The word dripped with hate. "No, sir," Marcus said, starting the recording on his phone. "Just exercising my rights as a citizen. My registration's in the glove compartment." Ayanna sat perfectly still, her heart pounding. She had seen this look before, the way some officers stared at her father, like he was already guilty. Coyle spat on the ground, getting mighty uppity for a mechanic. "Think being a veteran makes you special." His hand tightened on his holster. "Sir," Marcus said steadily, "I'm reaching for my registration now." Moving slow, he leaned toward the glove compartment. "Gun." Officer Dunn suddenly shouted, his voice cracking. Time slowed. Marcus's eyes widened in disbelief. "No." He started to say. 3 gunshots split the morning air like thunder. Marcus jerked violently, red spreading across his shirt. His phone hit the pavement as he slumped forward, tumbling out of the truck onto the street. "Daddy!" Ayanna screamed, scrambling across the seat. She dropped to her knees beside him, blood soaking into her school clothes. "Daddy, wake up. Please wake up." Coyle holstered his weapon, face showing no remorse. "Damn fool," he muttered, as if Marcus's death were nothing more than an inconvenience. Officer Dunn turned away, pale and shaking, hands trembling as he reached for his radio. Ayanna cradled her father's head in her lap, tears streaming down her face. Her hero essay slipped from the truck, landing in a puddle of blood. The ink ran, her words about courage and doing what's right dissolving into red water. Traffic slowed. Some people pulled out phones to record. Others looked away, pretending not to see. The sun kept rising over Hollow Creek, indifferent to the life it had just lost. Ayanna's world shattered in that moment, into pieces that would never fit back together. By noon, Main Street was wrapped in yellow crime scene tape. Police cruisers blocked off the area. Evidence markers dotted the ground like little yellow tombstones. Ayanna sat silently in the back of an ambulance. An orange shock blanket draped over her blood-stained dress. Her eyes never left the spot where her father fell. EMTs whispered nearby, unsure what to do. She hadn't said a word since they pulled her away. From behind the tape, a reporter's voice echoed, "Sources say the suspect was armed. That's a lie." Someone shouted. Marcus Freeman never carried a gun. He was a good man. Sergeant Coyle stood beside the police chief, gesturing as he spoke. "Clear self-defense," he insisted. He was reaching under the seat. "We had no choice." Every word hit Ayanna like another bullet. Officer Dunn sat alone in his cruiser, staring at his blood-smeared hands. His face was pale, his body trembling. More news vans arrived. Cameras pointed. Anchors rehearsed their concerned expressions. Live from Hollow Creek, Mississippi, one began, where an officer involved shooting. While everyone's attention was on the scene, Ayanna moved. She slid off the ambulance step and walked silently toward her father's truck. He had taught her how to move quietly on fishing trips. Now those lessons carried her through the chaos. The driver's door still hung open. Dried blood darkened the seat. Her small hands shook as she picked up his cracked phone from the floorboard. It was still recording over an hour of footage. She pressed stop and clutched it close. Then she remembered something: her father's gym bag. He'd put it in the trunk yesterday, along with his service pistol. The keys were still in the ignition. It took all her strength, but she managed to twist it open. The trunk popped with a creak. Wrapped in a cloth lay the black handgun, heavy, cold. He had always told her never to touch it. But her father was dead now, and all the rules had died with him. Voices rose in panic behind her. "Where's the girl? Someone find the girl." Ayanna stepped out from behind the truck, holding the pistol with both hands. People froze, dropped the gun. An officer yelled, but her eyes locked on Sergeant Coyle. "You killed my daddy," she cried, her voice breaking. The street went silent. Phones recorded. Cameras turned. Officers drew their weapons but hesitated. No one wanted to be the one who shot a 9-year-old girl on live TV. Coyle's voice cracked as he called out, "Put it down, kid. Don't make this worse. He didn't do anything wrong." Ayanna screamed, "You killed him. You lied." Movement flickered on nearby rooftops, men in tactical gear taking positions. Her father had told her about snipers once, how they could end a fight before it began. More police cars screeched onto the street. The crowd grew. Phones raised high. Hashtags were already being born. "Please, sweetheart," a female officer tried, voice trembling. "Just put the gun down. We can talk." Ayanna's voice cracked. "Like my daddy tried to talk." The standoff stretched from seconds into minutes, then nearly an hour. The sun climbed higher. Sweat rolled down faces. Fingers trembled on triggers. News helicopters circled above. Politicians prepared statements. Commentators debated. But on Main Street, a little girl stood alone, her father's blood drying on her shoes. 45 minutes into the standoff, the world seemed to hold its breath. The reporters whispered. The crowd murmured. Even the wind paused. Then a new voice echoed through the chaos. Deep, calm, commanding. "Ayanna." The crowd shifted as a tall man stepped forward through the wall of police and cameras. "This is Isaiah Holt," the voice continued through a bullhorn. "I'm a friend of your daddy. Let's talk, sweetheart." Isaiah Holt moved slowly, his hands visible, his face lined with years of service and hard truths. His clothes were simple dark jeans, gray shirt, but his presence drew silence. Every movement he made was deliberate, steady, safe. An officer tried to block him. "Sir, you can't. I served with Marcus Freeman," Isaiah said firmly. Navy SEALs, 2nd Battalion. That's his daughter. You'll stand down." Something in his voice made them obey. They stepped aside. Sergeant Coyle turned red. "This is a police matter, Holt. You need to." Isaiah didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed fixed on Ayanna, whose small hands still clutched the gun. Her arms shook, her face streaked with tears. Isaiah's voice softened. "Ayanna, your daddy talked about you all the time when we were overseas. You remember that video he sent you from the ship?" Ayanna blinked, tears filling her eyes. He wore his blue hat." "That's right," Isaiah said gently, taking another step. "The one with the dolphins on it. He bought it just for that video because you love dolphins." He smiled, and for a second, she almost did too. "He made the whole team sing happy birthday to you," Isaiah said, chuckling softly. "You remember how bad they sounded?" Ayanna sniffled. "He said you sounded like dying seals." Isaiah smiled wider. "That's exactly what he said. But he didn't care. He just wanted you to smile." Behind him, Coyle shifted impatiently. "This is wasting time," he hissed to the chief. "Take the shot. Stand down," Chief Merrick muttered, sweat beading on his brow. "Too many cameras." Isaiah kept moving slowly until he was only a few feet away from the trembling girl. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Your daddy was the bravest man I ever knew," he said. "But you know what made him proudest, Ayanna? It wasn't his medals. It wasn't his service. It was you." Her arms began to lower. "He promised he'd be home for dinner," she whispered. "He always keeps his promises." "I know, baby girl," Isaiah said, voice cracking with emotion. "He loved you more than anything. But this isn't what he'd want. Not this way." Coyle's voice hissed over the radio. "We have a clean shot. Stand down." Merrick barked. "The whole country's watching." Isaiah knelt, lowering himself to her eye level. "Your daddy taught you to be brave and smart. Be smart now. Let me help you, Ayanna." She looked into his eyes, steady, kind, familiar in a way that broke her heart. The gun slipped from her hands and clattered to the pavement. Her small body crumpled a moment later, overcome by tears. Isaiah caught her before she hit the ground. He held her tight against his chest as she sobbed uncontrollably, shaking with grief too big for her little frame. Officers surged forward, weapons raised. "Back off," Isaiah roared, his voice filled with the thunder of command. "She's a child." The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some cried. Others shouted in outrage at the sight of guns still drawn on a sobbing girl. Phones captured every second. Cameras streamed it live. The name Ayanna Freeman was already trending worldwide. Hours later, darkness settled over Hollow Creek. Isaiah's truck rolled through the quiet streets, headlights dim. Ayanna slept in the passenger seat, clutching her father's jacket. Her face was peaceful now, but the dark circles under her eyes told another story. News vans still circled the town like vultures, spinning new lies for their evening broadcasts. "Armed child takes officers hostage," one headline read. "Police show restraint in tense standoff," another claimed. Isaiah clenched his jaw as he turned into a narrow driveway. The truck stopped in front of a small craftsman-style house where every light was still on. Lena Freeman, Marcus's sister, stood on the porch waiting. She was a sharp-eyed attorney, but tonight her calm professionalism was cracked by grief and fury. When she saw her niece, her expression broke. Tears filled her eyes as Isaiah carried the sleeping child up the steps. Lena brushed Ayanna's hair tenderly. "They're already twisting it," she said bitterly. "Calling my brother a threat. Calling this baby unstable." Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned with purpose. "They killed my brother in cold blood, Isaiah. Shot him down like he was nothing. But they're not going to bury this one in silence. Not this time." The next morning, gray light filled Lena's kitchen. The TV blared local news coverage, carefully edited bodycam clips, showing only Marcus's final moments, cutting out everything before the gunfire. Sources say Marcus Freeman, a local mechanic with possible gang ties, reached for a weapon. The anchor said with practiced sympathy. "You lying cowards," Lena hissed. She threw her coffee mug at the TV. It shattered against the wall, dark liquid streaming down like blood. Her hands trembled as she grabbed her car keys. Moments later, she stood in the polished wood office of District Attorney William Palmer. He was a man who had mastered the art of looking concerned while doing nothing. "Miss Freeman," he said smoothly, folding his hands. I understand this is a difficult. Save it. Lena cut him off. I want the unedited footage. All of it, body cams, dash cams, surveillance. Palmer sighed, spreading his hands. It's not that simple. This is an ongoing investigation. My brother was murdered in broad daylight, Lena shot back. The situation is complicated, Palmer said carefully. Initial reports suggest your brother made threatening movements. That's bull, and you know it, she shouted, leaning across the desk. Marcus was a veteran. He knew how to handle himself. His hands were visible the whole time. We need to let the investigation run its course, Palmer replied smoothly. While you doctor evidence, she said, standing up. I'm filing a formal request for the footage today, and if one frame is missing, I'm going to the FBI, across town. Isaiah Holt was working the streets. He spoke to witnesses. One by one, people too scared to talk to police, but willing to whisper the truth. At the corner store, Miss Ruby, an elderly shop owner, rearranged candy bars with trembling hands. That boy had his hands up the whole time, she whispered. Coyle was looking for trouble. Always has been. She lowered her voice even more. Marcus knew something, Mr. Holt. Something big. He was in here last week talking about evidence he'd been gathering. Isaiah leaned closer. Evidence of what? Hellion Defense, she said, eyes darting toward the window. They've been dumping chemicals where our kids play. He was tracking it. Pictures, dates, all of it. She gripped Isaiah's arm. You be careful asking about that, son. Folks who dig too deep round here tend to disappear. Isaiah nodded slowly. Thank you, Miss Ruby. That night, as rain fell softly over Hollow Creek, Isaiah sat in his truck outside Marcus's old auto shop. The sign Freeman Auto Repair creaked in the wind. He used the spare key Marcus had given him years ago and stepped inside. The place was quiet, tools hanging neatly in place. It still smelled faintly of oil and of Marcus, steady, dependable, alive. Isaiah's flashlight swept across the office until it caught something half-hidden behind the desk. A heavy metal toolbox labeled simply HDC. He typed in a code he knew by heart, Ayana's birthday. The lock clicked open. Inside were folders, flash drives, photos, chemical reports, maps marked with red dots, and one handwritten note. It read, if I don't make it back, tell Isaiah it wasn't an accident. Isaiah's chest tightened. His friend had known this might happen. He'd tried to protect his family, to gather proof. But paper couldn't stop bullets. Isaiah closed the box and stared out the window. A patrol car was slowly rolling past, headlights sweeping across the rain-slick street. They were watching, always watching. He waited in the dark until the car drove away. Then he gripped the box tighter. Whatever Marcus had uncovered, whatever truth had gotten him killed, Isaiah would finish what his brother in arms started. And this time, he wouldn't fight alone. Thunder rolled across Hollow Creek that night as rain hammered against Lena Freeman's windows. Inside her living room, every surface was covered in papers. Isaiah sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through Marcus's documents. Receipts, maps, photos, and lab reports were spread out in neat piles. Lena paced, phone pressed to her ear. No, I need those body cam files tonight, she snapped. I don't care about your protocols. She paused, listening to the answer on the other end, then hung up in frustration. They're stonewalling us. Isaiah looked up from a stack of papers. They're buying time to clean up the evidence. He held up a sheet. Look at this purchase orders between Hellion Defense and the Hollow Creek Police Department. Lena frowned. That's not unusual. Departments buy riot gear from defense contractors all the time. Yeah, but look at the quantities. Isaiah spread several more sheets across the coffee table. Chemical dispersal units, water cannon stuff a small town would never need. They're over-ordering and using it as cover to move something else. Thunder shook the house. Upstairs, a faint whimper drifted down the hall. Lena glanced up. She's been having nightmares, she whispered. Isaiah's jaw tightened. Can't blame her. She watched her father die. She won't sleep unless she's holding his jacket, Lena said quietly. She says it still smells like him. They worked in silence, rain beating against the windows. Isaiah organized the papers methodically: financial records, chemical analysis reports, land deeds. The puzzle was starting to form. Here, Lena said suddenly, pointing to a contract. Look at these signatures. The police department isn't just buying from Helion, they're providing security for their waste transport. Isaiah leaned closer. Official escort for sensitive materials. That's how they're doing it, moving chemicals under police protection, so no one asks questions. Marcus figured it out, Lena whispered. Those late-night convoys, he mentioned he was tracking them. Her voice broke. They killed him for this. Isaiah pulled out his phone. I know someone who can help. A guy named Torres. We served together. Last I heard, he was doing private security for Helion. Can you trust him? He left 6 months ago. Said the work felt dirty. If anyone knows what's really going on, it's him. Isaiah walked to the window, scanning the street. Wait, a flash of movement caught his eye. A dark sedan sat parked across the road, lights off, engine humming. Get down, he hissed. The window exploded. Gunfire tore through the living room, shredding curtains and picture frames. Isaiah tackled Lena to the floor as bullets ripped through the walls. Glass rained down. Upstairs, Ayanna screamed. Stay down. Isaiah barked, army crawling toward his jacket where his pistol lay. More shots came, controlled and precise. Whoever they were, they weren't amateurs. Lena started to rise. Ayanna, I'll get her, Isaiah growled. He grabbed his weapon just as tires screeched outside. The dark car peeled away into the rain-soaked night. Lena ran upstairs, shouting her niece's name. Ayanna, baby, it's okay. Isaiah swept the perimeter with trained efficiency, checking corners, calculating trajectories. This wasn't random violence. Every bullet was aimed exactly where the documents had been spread. Upstairs, Lena found Ayanna curled in a corner, clutching her father's jacket. They're going to kill us like they killed Daddy. The little girl sobbed. No, baby, Lena whispered, rocking her gently. We won't let them. Isaiah came up the stairs, scanning the hallway with weapon drawn. They sent a message, he said grimly. Back off or die. Sirens wailed in the distance. Isaiah gathered the most crucial papers and stuffed them into Marcus's heavy toolbox. We can't trust the cops, he said. Not after this. Minutes later, red and blue lights flashed through the shattered windows. Rain poured in, soaking the carpet, turning everything cold. When the officers entered, they barely looked around. Detective Harris, a heavy man with thinning hair, scribbled in his notebook. Probably gang-related, he muttered. Lot of that going around. Isaiah folded his arms. Gang-related? These were trained shooters. You see those groupings? That's military precision. Harris shrugged. Could be cartel. They're getting sophisticated these days. That's garbage, and you know it. Lena snapped from the couch, still wrapped in a blanket. This is about Marcus's murder and Helion's cover-up. Ma'am, Harris said coldly, your brother's case is closed. Don't go making connections that aren't there. Within minutes, the police packed up and left. No photos of the bullet holes. No collection of shell casings. No investigation. It was theater designed to look official, but it wasn't. After they were gone, Isaiah drove to Marcus's garage again. The building stood silent under a gray morning sky, yellow tape flapping in the breeze. He ducked under it and stepped inside. Everything was exactly as before. The calendar on the wall still showed the week Marcus died. A strange smell hung in the air, chemical, sharp, wrong. Isaiah followed it through the back door to the creek behind the shop. There, floating belly up in the muddy water, were dozens of dead fish. A greasy rainbow film covered the surface. What were you onto, brother? Isaiah murmured. Something metal glinted under the brush near the waterline. He pushed through the wet brambles and froze. Half submerged in mud sat several industrial barrels marked property of Helion Defense Corp. Hazardous materials. Isaiah snapped photos, serial numbers, barrel labels. The dead wildlife around them. He was so focused that he didn't notice the footsteps until a voice spoke behind him. Beautiful morning for a nature walk, isn't it, Mr. Holt? Isaiah turned slowly. Mayor Henry Reddick stood on the bank, perfectly dry in a tailored suit, flanked by 2 uniformed officers with hands resting on their guns. Mayor, Isaiah said evenly, palming his phone to stop the recording. I make it my business to know who's snooping around sensitive areas. Reddick said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just taking a walk, Isaiah replied. You know, enjoying the poison air. The mayor's grin thinned. You seem to be having trouble letting go of the past, Holt. Stirring up ghosts that should stay buried. Like Marcus Freeman. A tragic situation, he added smoothly. But dwelling on it won't bring him back. This town needs peace, progress. Isaiah gestured toward the toxic creek. Is this your idea of progress? Careful, son, Reddick said softly. Let's not make accusations we can't prove. Accidents happen. Environmental surveys are complicated. Best leave it to the proper authorities. The proper authorities seem awful busy looking the other way. Reddick's smile faded. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Listen carefully. You serve your country, and I respect that. So I'll give you some friendly advice. Go home, find another town to settle in. Because if you keep poking around, accidents might start happening to you too. The threat hung in the damp air. Isaiah didn't blink. That sounded a lot like a threat, Mr. Mayor. Reddick adjusted his tie. Just looking out for your well-being. Consider it a final warning. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and if any of those documents you've been collecting were to find their way to the press, this town won't take kindly to outsiders spreading lies about respected businesses. Isaiah watched him go, every word and gesture captured by his phone's hidden camera. When they were gone, he checked the recording perfect audio, every threat crystal clear. He drove straight to a quiet parking lot on the edge of town and pulled out his phone. Lena had given him the contact for Tanya Cruz, an investigative journalist known for exposing corporate corruption. He attached the video, the photos, and a message: Marcus Freeman's murder. Helion Defense Environmental Crimes. Mayor involved. Proof attached. The reply came within minutes. Meet me at dawn. Bring everything. Watch your back. 3 whistleblowers on Helion have died this year. Isaiah stared at the screen, rain pounding on the windshield. The creek shimmered outside, rainbow colors swirling over poisoned water. Beautiful and deadly, just like Hollow Creek itself. The sun was just beginning to rise when Isaiah Holt pulled into the gravel lot of an old roadside diner. The neon sign flickered weekly Maggie's Breakfast and Brew. Inside, truckers drank coffee, and old country music hummed softly in the background. Isaiah parked his truck where he could see the exits. Years of military instinct never left him. He stepped inside, his jacket heavy with the weight of Marcus's evidence. At a corner booth sat a woman with short dark hair and sharp, watchful eyes. Tanya Cruz. She looked up as he approached. You're Isaiah Holt. That's right. She nodded toward the seat across from her. Sit and call me Tanya. Isaiah slid into the booth. You got my message. Got it, she said, taking a sip of her coffee. And I got curious. Helion Defense military contracts, private research, political connections up to D.C. You realize what you're stepping into. I've seen worse, Isaiah said. But this time, they killed my brother. Freeman? She asked softly. Isaiah nodded. Tanya tapped the table. I read the reports. They're lying about everything. But lies like that don't stick unless someone powerful wants them to. So what do you have? Isaiah placed the metal toolbox on the table and opened it carefully. Inside were the documents, photos, and the recording of Mayor Reddick's threat. Tanya's eyes widened as she scanned through the pages. This is massive, she whispered. Contracts between Helion and local government, shipments of toxic waste listed as equipment, payments to the police department, and that recording, good Lord. She leaned back. If this gets out, Hollow Creek won't just make headlines. It'll explode. Then let's light the fuse, Isaiah said quietly. Tanya smiled faintly. I like your style, soldier. But there's one problem. If Helion's involved, they've got eyes everywhere. The moment I publish this, they'll come for you, me, and that little girl. Isaiah's jaw tightened. They already came once. Then we need to do this right, Tanya said. Chain of custody, off-site backups, anonymous leaks. It's got to be airtight, or they'll bury it before it even trends. Isaiah nodded. You tell me what you need. Tanya gathered the papers into a folder. Meet me tonight in Jackson. I'll have a secure upload line ready. And Holt, don't go back to the house. They'll be watching. He stood, shook her hand firmly, and walked out. The air outside smelled of rain and gasoline. Across the road, a man in a gray sedan lit a cigarette and pretended not to watch. Isaiah got into his truck, turned the key, and smiled faintly. The reflection in his rearview mirror showed the man raising a walkie-talkie. So it begins, he thought. As he pulled onto the highway, he dialed Lena. "They're tracking me," he said flatly. "Pack a bag, take a Yana, and get somewhere safe. I'll handle this." "Isaiah, don't do anything stupid. Too late," he said and hung up. That evening, the rain returned heavy, relentless. The road to Jackson stretched long and empty. Isaiah's headlights cut through the downpour as he replayed Marcus's voice in his head. "You can't fight every battle, brother," Marcus had once told him. "Sometimes you just stand so the next man knows where to plant his feet." He smiled sadly. "Well, I'm standing now." He didn't notice the black SUV merging behind him until it was too close. The first hit came hard, metal slamming into metal, spinning his truck sideways across the slick road. Tires screamed. Isaiah fought the wheel, managing to straighten out just before another impact shoved him toward the guardrail. He braked, slammed the gear into reverse, and floored it, colliding back into the SUV. Glass shattered. A man leaned out of the passenger window with a gun. Isaiah ducked as bullets tore through the windshield. He swerved violently, clipped the SUV's rear tire, and sent it fishtailing into a ditch. The vehicle flipped twice before bursting into flames. Isaiah sat there, chest heaving, rain pouring through the bullet holes in the glass. He checked the rearview mirror, no movement. Then he looked ahead. Another car's headlights appeared in the distance. "Of course," he muttered. "They sent backup." He grabbed Marcus's toolbox, jumped out of the truck, and sprinted into the forest beside the highway. The wet earth sucked at his boots, and branches whipped against his face. Behind him, flashlights cut through the trees. Voices shouted. Radios crackled. "Spread out. He's on foot." Isaiah crouched behind a fallen log, rain dripping from his hair. He pulled his phone from his pocket, opened a map, and saw a blinking blue dot nearby, an abandoned railway tunnel less than a mile away. Perfect cover. He moved silently, like he had on missions overseas, gliding through the darkness. The men chasing him were loud, careless mercenaries, not soldiers. He slipped past them easily. By the time he reached the tunnel, his clothes were soaked and his muscles ached, but he was alive. Inside, water dripped from the ceiling in rhythmic echoes. He sat against the cold wall, catching his breath. The toolbox sat beside him, its metal surface dented but intact. He wiped the mud from Marcus's note and whispered, "Didn't let it fall, brother." At dawn, he emerged from the other side of the tunnel. His truck was gone, the road empty. But he found an old payphone outside a gas station and called Tanya. "They tried to kill me," he said simply. "I figured," she replied calmly. "You still got the data?" "Yeah, good. Then meet me at the old rail yard in Jackson. 2 hours. And Holt, don't let anyone follow you." He hung up and looked around the quiet roadside. A little boy stood by the gas pump, holding a dripping ice cream cone, staring up at him. "You look like you've been through a war," the boy said. Isaiah gave a tired smile. "Feels like it, kid." He handed the boy a $20 bill. "Do me a favor. If anyone asks, you never saw me." The boy grinned. "Yes, sir." Isaiah grabbed a discarded raincoat from a donation bin nearby, threw it over his shoulders, and started walking down the highway toward Jackson. 2 hours later, Tanya was waiting by the rusted train yard gates, pacing under an umbrella. When she saw Isaiah, her face broke into relief. "You made it." "Barely." She led him inside a small maintenance shed where her laptop was connected to a satellite hotspot. "Once I upload this," she said, "there's no turning back. You ready for that?" Isaiah looked down at Marcus's jacket, now torn and muddy, and nodded. "My brother didn't die for nothing. Let's finish this." Tanya inserted the flash drive. The files loaded. Progress bars filled the screen slowly. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered. "Power surge," Tanya said nervously. "That's not supposed to happen." A faint buzzing noise grew outside. "Helicopter blades." Isaiah's instincts screamed. He ran to the door and looked out. A black chopper was circling the yard, spotlight sweeping the ground. "They found us," he growled. Tanya yanked the flash drive from the laptop. "It's 80% uploaded." "Forget it," Isaiah said, grabbing her arm. "Move." The helicopter's side door slid open. A A spotlight flared, followed by the sharp pop of gunfire. Bullets chewed through the tin roof. Isaiah dragged Tanya behind a pile of crates as the shed shook. Sparks flew. "What now?" she shouted. He scanned the area, mind racing. "We split up. They want the drive. You run get it to someone you trust. And you?" He checked his pistol. "I'll give them something to chase." Tanya hesitated, eyes wide with fear and respect. "You're insane." "Been called worse," Isaiah said with a smirk. He kicked open the side door and sprinted across the open yard. The helicopter's light locked on him instantly. Gunfire followed. He dove behind an abandoned train car, then fired 3 quick shots at the chopper's tail. The pilot jerked the craft away, struggling to stabilize. Isaiah sprinted again, weaving between rusted rail cars until the trees swallowed him. The last thing he heard was Tanya's car speeding off into the distance. Then the night fell quiet, broken only by the fading sound of the helicopter retreating. Isaiah stood alone in the rain, soaked, exhausted but alive. Somewhere out there, Tanya carried the truth. And as long as she did, Marcus's voice still echoed in the world. Rain still poured over the Mississippi highway as Isaiah walked, miles from the rail yard. Mud splashing under every step. The world felt heavier now, like the air itself carried secrets. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Marcus's face and Ayana's scream. He finally reached an abandoned gas station, its neon sign flickering weakly. Inside, he found an old payphone that somehow still worked. He dialed Lena's number. She answered on the second ring, voice trembling. "Isaiah, are you alive?" "Barely," he said. "Tanya's got the files. She's uploading them. Once that happens, this whole cover-up burns." There was a pause. "You trust her?" "I want to," he said, rubbing his tired eyes. "But trust gets people killed these days." Lena's voice dropped low. "We've been getting threats. Someone broke into my office last night. They didn't take anything, they just left a note." "What did it say?" She swallowed hard. "It said, 'Stop digging or bury your niece.'" Isaiah's blood went cold. "Where's Ayana?" "She's safe," Lena said quickly. "I sent her with a friend in Memphis." "But Isaiah, whoever's behind this isn't scared of the law. They are the law." Isaiah's hand clenched the phone until the cord squeaked. "Then we'll show the world." He hung up, stepped outside, and looked toward the horizon where the clouds were beginning to break. The rain had stopped, but the war had just begun. 2 states away, Tanya Cruz sat in her dimly lit motel room, her laptop open, eyes glued to the screen as the upload bar inched forward. The power flickered twice, but she didn't move. When the progress hit 100%, she exhaled a shaky breath. "It's done," she whispered. She transferred the files to 3 encrypted drives and made calls to her contacts. "I've got something explosive," she told one editor. "You'll want your lawyers ready." But as she reached for her coffee, she noticed a red light blinking near the window. A tiny laser dot moved across the curtains. Her pulse quickened. Before she could move, the window shattered. Tanya dropped to the floor as a bullet ripped through the wall. She crawled toward her laptop, grabbed the flash drive, and bolted out the door barefoot. Rain had started again, pouring hard as she ran across the parking lot to her car. She jumped inside, started the engine, and sped off toward Jackson's downtown, her wipers slapping wildly against the windshield. She drove fast, heart pounding, until she reached a small newsroom, the Southern Truth Journal, where her editor, Peter Lang, waited at the door. "Good God, Tanya, what happened?" He gasped when he saw her soaked and shaking. "They found me," she said breathlessly. "But I got it all. Freeman's murder, Helion, the mayor, everything." Lang locked the doors and ushered her inside. "Upload it now, before anyone can stop us." Within minutes, the files began syncing to their servers. Photos, contracts, video recordings, all of it. At 6:40 a.m., the story went live. Headline, exclusive, Mississippi mayor and defense contractor linked to murder and toxic dumping cover-up. It spread like wildfire. By sunrise, every major network had picked it up. CNN, Reuters, The Guardian. Hashtags flooded social media. Hashtag justice for Marcus. Hashtag HELION files. Hashtag AYANA Freeman. Isaiah saw it first on a diner TV hours later. He sat silently as the anchor's voice filled the room. Leaked documents reveal evidence of corporate and political collusion tied to the police shooting of veteran Marcus Freeman. Sources allege Hellion Defense has been illegally dumping chemical waste under police escort. The waitress behind the counter whispered, "Ain't that the man from Hollow Creek?" Isaiah stared at the screen, jaw tight. Then his phone buzzed a text from Lena. "They're saying your name on TV. They know you helped leak it." He typed back, "Too late to hide now." The next 48 hours changed everything. FBI agents arrived in Hollow Creek. The mayor held a shaky press conference, denying all involvement. Protesters filled the streets. Reporters camped outside City Hall, but inside a corporate skyscraper hundreds of miles away, Hellion Defense executives watched the chaos unfold with cold precision. At the head of the table sat Victor Hellion, the company's founder and CEO, a man with gray hair, calm eyes, and a reputation for making problems disappear. He watched the news footage silently, then looked at his security chief. "Contain it." The man nodded. "Understood." That evening, Tanya Cruz stepped out of her newsroom into the parking lot. Phone pressed to her ear. "Yes, I'll meet the federal agents in the morning. I'll hand over the originals myself." A black van pulled up across the street. Its headlights went dark. Tanya never saw it coming. By the time a janitor found her car still idling an hour later, the driver's seat was empty and the flash drive was gone. News outlets speculated that she'd gone into hiding. Only Isaiah knew better. When he didn't hear from her again, he drove to Jackson the next morning. The newsroom was under police tape. Reporters whispered near the door. "Disappeared last night," one said. Security footage just gone, like she was erased. Isaiah's stomach sank. He turned to leave, but a man in a dark suit blocked his path. "Isaiah Holt." The man asked quietly. "Who's asking?" "Special Agent Davis, FBI. We need to talk." Isaiah didn't move. "You part of the cleanup or the cure?" The agent met his eyes evenly. "The cure, if you let us be." Davis handed him a small folder. Inside were printed photos, barrels, contracts, and Marcus's note. "We received these from a secure leak. Someone wanted us to know what you risked your life for. We're moving in on Hellion, but we'll need you to testify." Isaiah's heart pounded. "You think testimony can stop men who kill journalists?" "It's not about stopping them," Davis said. "It's about exposing them. Once the public knows everything, there's no going back." Isaiah thought for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll do it. But first, I need to see the girl." Lena and Ayanna were hiding at a small farmhouse near Memphis when Isaiah arrived that night. The moment Ayanna saw him, she ran to him and threw her arms around his waist. "I thought you were gone," she whispered. He knelt and smiled gently. "Not yet, baby girl. Not till this is done." Lena looked worn but relieved. "The news is everywhere," she said. "People are finally talking about Marcus. They're calling him a hero." Isaiah's voice softened. He always was. They sat together in silence as the rain tapped softly against the window. But outside that farmhouse, headlights flashed briefly in the trees, then disappeared. Someone else had found them. The night outside the farmhouse was still. Too still. Isaiah's instincts whispered danger. He stepped quietly to the window and peered through the curtain. The headlights had vanished, but the faint crunch of tires on gravel told him what he needed to know. "They found us," he said softly. Lena's face went pale. "How?" "We changed cars twice. They're tracking phones or license plates," Isaiah replied. "Get Ayanna. We need to move." But before they could reach the back door, a single shot shattered the front window. Glass exploded across the room. Ayanna screamed, "Down!" Isaiah barked, throwing himself over her as bullets ripped through the walls. Lena dove behind the couch, heart hammering. "Oh my God, stay down!" Isaiah shouted. He grabbed the old hunting rifle from above the fireplace, a relic Marcus had left there years ago, and crawled toward the back window. Outside, 3 men in tactical gear advanced through the darkness. Their movements were precise, practiced. He fired once. One of the men dropped instantly. The other 2 scattered for cover. Lena crawled to Ayanna, shielding her trembling body. "It's okay, baby. It's okay," she whispered, though her voice shook. Isaiah's mind raced. They were cut off. No time for backup. He glanced toward the kitchen. Gas stove. Propane line. A dangerous idea flickered in his head. "Lena," he whispered. "Get her to the basement. Now. What are you? Just do it." She didn't argue. She grabbed Ayanna's hand and pulled her toward the stairs leading down into the root cellar. Isaiah waited until they were clear, then crawled to the stove and yanked the gas line loose. The hiss filled the air instantly. He slipped out the back door into the shadows, circling wide through the yard. The mercenaries crept closer, whispering into earpieces. Targets inside. Moving in. Isaiah crouched behind the rain barrel, steadying his breathing. He waited until both men stepped through the shattered front door. Then he lit a match and tossed it through the open kitchen window. The explosion shattered the night. A ball of fire burst through the farmhouse, lighting up the trees for miles. The blast knocked Isaiah flat, ears ringing, smoke filling his lungs. When he stumbled to his feet, the house was burning fast. Flames roared up the wooden walls, painting the night sky orange. "Lena," he shouted. "Ayanna." He ran to the side entrance, kicked it open, and charged down into the cellar. The air was thick with dust and smoke. Lena coughed, clutching Ayanna against her chest. "We're okay," she cried, eyes watering. Isaiah grabbed them both. "Come on, we've got to move before more come." They climbed out through a small storm hatch in the back and fled into the trees, the fire behind them roaring like an angry god. Minutes later, distant sirens echoed in the night. The farmhouse was gone, nothing but burning memories and ash. They drove through the backroads in Isaiah's old pickup, the one he'd rebuilt with Marcus years ago. Ayanna sat between them, clutching the folded flag from her father's funeral. "Where will we go now?" Lena asked quietly. Isaiah's jaw set. "Somewhere they won't expect. And then, I'm ending this. By dawn." They reached a remote cabin deep in the Delta Woods property, once owned by one of Isaiah's Navy brothers. The place was off-grid. No cell signals, no cameras, no tracks. He set Ayanna on the couch and covered her with a blanket. "Get some rest, baby girl," he said softly. She looked up at him with sleepy, tear-filled eyes. "You'll come back, right?" Isaiah hesitated. "Always," he said, forcing a smile. When she drifted to sleep, Lena stepped outside with him. "You're planning something." "I'm done running," Isaiah said. "Helion thinks fear will keep us quiet. It won't. I'm taking this straight to their doorstep. You'll get killed." He looked out over the rising sun. "Then I'll die fighting for something that matters." He handed her a flash drive. "Everything on here, copy of Tanya's files, recordings, names. If I don't come back, you leak it again. Everywhere." Lena grabbed his arm, voice breaking. "Don't do this alone." He smiled faintly. "I won't." Hours later, 3 black SUVs rolled into Hollow Creek's industrial district. The Helion plant loomed ahead, massive concrete walls, barbed wire fences, and the faint hum of machinery. But inside, chaos was brewing. The FBI raids had already begun. Agents swarmed through offices, shouting commands. Isaiah used the confusion to slip inside through a maintenance gate. He moved quickly through the corridors, pistol drawn. He found Victor Helion in a glass conference room, calm as ever, surrounded by lawyers and bodyguards. Isaiah stepped through the doorway. "Morning, Helion." The CEO didn't flinch. "I was wondering when you'd come. Then you know why I'm here." Helion adjusted his cufflinks. "You're a soldier, Mr. Holt. You should understand sometimes lives must be sacrificed for progress." Isaiah's eyes burned. Marcus Freeman wasn't a sacrifice. He was your liability because he told the truth. Helion stood, his voice smooth and venomous. "You have no idea how deep this goes. Men like me build the world you live in. You think your little war changes that?" Isaiah raised his gun. "I don't need to change the world. I just need to make sure people see what you've done." Helion smiled coldly. "Then pull the trigger. Make me a martyr." A door burst open behind Isaiah. FBI agents stormed in. "Drop the weapon." Isaiah hesitated. Helion's smirk widened. Agent Davis pushed forward. "Isaiah, put it down. We've got enough to bury him without you." Isaiah's finger trembled on the trigger. He saw Marcus's face, in his mind, the easy grin, the tired eyes. The words, "Sometimes you just stand so the next man knows where to plant his feet." He lowered the gun and stepped back. Helion exhaled slowly. Wise choice. Then Davis turned to his team. "Take him." 2 agents moved forward, not toward Helion, but toward Isaiah. Isaiah's heart stopped. "What is this?" Davis's eyes were flat. "Orders from above. You're too messy, Holt, too visible." Helion smirked. "Told you. The world protects its architects." Before Isaiah could react, one of the agents swung a baton. Pain exploded across his skull, and the world went black. When he woke, he was lying on a dirt floor, wrists zip-tied, somewhere underground. Dim light flickered from a single bulb overhead. A familiar voice echoed from the shadows. "You should have listened to me, Mr. Holt." Mayor Reddick stepped forward, flanked by armed guards. "Now look at you, hero turned fugitive." Isaiah groaned, trying to sit up. "Where's Lena? Where's Ayanna?" Reddick smiled coldly. "Safe, for now. But safety's expensive these days." Isaiah spat blood. "You think killing me stops this? The truth's already out." Reddick chuckled. "Truth is a fragile thing. It bends, it fades. And when the next crisis hits, people forget." He leaned closer. "But you'll be forgotten by morning." Isaiah stared at him, unflinching. "You underestimate a Freeman's promise." Before Reddick could respond, a loud crash echoed overhead, gunfire, shouting, footsteps. The door burst open. FBI agents stormed in, led by none other than Lena Freeman herself, dirt-streaked, furious, eyes blazing. "Step away from him," she shouted. Reddick turned in shock. "You." She held up a badge. "Federal Witness Protection, newly deputized by Agent Torres, Helion's ex-security chief. Remember him?" Chaos erupted. Gunfire, screams. In the confusion, Isaiah rolled to his side, grabbed a fallen pistol, and freed himself from the zip ties. He and Lena fought side by side, moving like the old SEAL days. One by one, the guards went down. When the smoke cleared, Reddick was gone, slipped through a back tunnel. But Isaiah didn't chase. He collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Lena knelt beside him. "You okay?" He smiled weakly. "Better than I deserve." Outside, dawn was breaking again. Helicopters circled overhead as federal trucks rolled into the compound. Marcus's name echoed on every radio frequency, every news ticker. Veterans' death sparks national investigation into corporate corruption. For the first time in months, Isaiah felt the weight lift from his chest. But the war wasn't over yet. 2 weeks later, the sun rose over Washington, D.C., cutting through the marble columns of the federal courthouse. The world had changed since Hollow Creek's secrets came to light. Helion Defense was under full investigation. Mayor Reddick was in custody, and Marcus Freeman's name, once buried under lies, now carried the weight of truth. Inside the courtroom, every seat was filled with journalists, veterans, activists, families who had lost everything to corruption. Cameras lined the aisles, lenses aimed at the front where Isaiah Holt sat beside Lena and Ayanna. She wore a simple yellow dress, her father's dog tags hanging around her neck. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. The judge nodded. "Miss Freeman, you may read your statement." Ayanna stood, holding the small piece of paper she'd rewritten a dozen times. Her voice wavered at first, but then found its strength. "My name is Ayanna Freeman," she said softly. "My daddy's name was Marcus Freeman. He was a soldier. He loved to fix cars, tell jokes, and help people. He didn't carry hate in his heart." She took a deep breath, her voice growing clearer. "One morning, he was driving me to school. He told me heroes aren't people who fight. Heroes are people who do what's right, even when it's hard. He did that his whole life, and for that, they killed him." The room fell silent. No cameras clicked. No one moved. Ayanna continued, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My daddy didn't die because he did something wrong. He died because someone thought a man with my daddy's skin couldn't be good. But my daddy was the best man I ever knew." She looked up at the rows of faces staring back. "I forgive them, because daddy said hate is a chain, and I don't want to wear it." When she finished, the entire courtroom rose to their feet. Reporters wept. Even the judge took off his glasses to wipe his eyes. Isaiah felt his throat tighten. He reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "You did him proud, baby girl." After the hearing, outside the courthouse, the steps were filled with people chanting Marcus Freeman's name. Protesters held signs that read "Truth never dies" and "Justice for Hollow Creek." Isaiah stood at the edge of the crowd beside Lena, watching the sea of faces, the banners waving like flags of hope. "She's something, huh?" Lena said, smiling through her tears. Isaiah nodded. "She's her father's daughter." Across the street, FBI agent Davis approached, looking worn but sincere. "Helian and Reddick are finished. The files you recovered sealed it. The rest will face trial." Isaiah's voice was quiet. "It won't bring Marcus back." "No," Davis said, "but it'll make sure his name stands for something bigger than his death." As Davis walked away, Isaiah turned his eyes to the morning sky. The city's noise faded around him. In his heart, he heard Marcus's voice again, steady, warm, alive. "Sometimes you just stand so the next man knows where to plant his feet." He smiled faintly. "You stood tall, brother. Now she will too." Weeks later, back in Hollow Creek, the town was changing. The poisoned creek had been cleaned. The factory gates were locked for good. A memorial stood outside the rebuilt Church of Bronze statue of Marcus Freeman, kneeling beside a little girl holding a folded flag. Ayanna visited every Sunday. She'd sit by the flowers, whispering about her school projects, her friends, and her dreams. One afternoon, Isaiah joined her. The air was warm, the cicadas singing in the trees. "She still talks to him," Lena said softly, watching from the steps. Isaiah smiled. "He's still listening." Ayanna looked up, eyes shining. "Uncle Isaiah?" "Yeah, sweetheart. When people ask me who my hero is, I still say Daddy. But now I tell them heroes have friends who don't give up." Isaiah's chest tightened. "He'd like that." She smiled, holding his hand. "I think he already knows." They sat together as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. For the first time in a long while, Hollow Creek felt peaceful again. Not healed but hopeful, because the truth had finally found its voice, and it sounded like a little girl saying her daddy's name. And that's how a tragedy turned into a movement, how a fallen man's voice rose higher than the lies meant to silence him. Because truth, once spoken, never dies. If this story moved you, share it, remember it, and let it remind you real heroes don't wear capes. They just never stop standing.